business, especially online business, is one of those things that we kind of look at and think, if I really want to have some semblance of freedom out there in the world, I'm probably going to have to start having some kind of online business. And for those of us that have actually tried it, well, you quickly figure out just how lonely that is. So today we're going to talk a little bit about how business wasn't supposed to be that lonely, and also how the internet certainly didn't help, and how we might be able to fix that. So, hope you don't mind, I'm going to eat. I've been working all day long, and so I'm going to need a little bit of food. So now you can make money from your laptop, but your coworkers are tabs, tools, and your own spiraling thoughts. Thanks, Zuckerberg. It's kind of unfortunate, but it is the truth. As business became a little bit easier, well, the harder part suddenly became connection and hanging out with people, even the people that are on your team. Most of the people on my team, if it weren't for this giant bus, are all remote, and so we're only able to get together as much as we can spend time online, and a lot of it's just working on stuff, So how did that happen? How do we fix it? Well, we'll explore that a little bit later in this video, but it's important to note, right, that what are the results of loneliness? Well, a lot of times it's this general feeling of emptiness, or a drive, but like a missing piece in your day-to-day. I think we've all felt it at some point, because it is truly nice to have someone also mentally involved in what you're doing you can spend time with or share energy with in some capacity, conversations, the rest. And when you don't have that, there's a pretty vital asset missing from doing something like business online, which is already difficult enough as it is. I don't think it needs to be any more difficult than that. So when we explore why we'd want to avoid feeling lonely there, well, I think because, I don't know about you, but I certainly do my best work when I've got people to share it with. And if, in my mind at least, if they're also interested in things I'm working at, like at a professional level, awesome, even better. Point is, don't feel like you're alone, okay? Because one of the biggest assets that I think the Skool games, for example, which I was hosting in 2024, ever gave to people was it permitted entrepreneurs to finally be able to, as they put it, be in a room with other people they didn't have to explain themselves to. And I think especially as an entrepreneur or someone involved in business, you spend a lot of time explaining to minds and interests that may not understand and may not want to understand. And that does leave you feeling really lonely. So I think we're really coming about at a time, especially when there's so much AI and automation stuff out there, where the value placed on being able to connect and spend more time with people isn't just healthy on an emotional level. It'll be transformative at a productivity and earnings level as well. So, number 2, followers are not friendship. You used to see this a lot with regular celebrities where, especially in the music industry, a lot of my favorite actors and musicians, they've all, not all, but a lot of them have offed themselves in spite of their fame, resources, everything. So from it, what can you surmise is the issue? Well, a lot of times it's drug issues, but sometimes, and maybe at the base of that first one is also this one, it's loneliness. I've heard this before, that if you're attractive or wealthy, you have to be careful about who you trust and who you let in, because there's a very good chance that that was the reason why they came in, and they had a lot of into your life, and it had a lot less to do with who you were as a person. And I think there's truth to that. I've seen it happen over and over in life. So that does mean that you do have to have some kind of wall around you as you get more wealthy or more attractive, or and anything that is a generally interesting thing to the world. Now, what's tough with that is when you expand it into like the social media angles, you're sort of forced to, and I've experienced this myself, have this balance between both wanting to get out there and deliver a cool service or some value to people, but also not give so much away that you don't have any form of privacy. And I think everyone can appreciate celebrity until they have to do it themselves at the expense of privacy. You'll hear about that a lot. But more so, when we're talking about this loneliness feature, how can you avoid that at that level? It is tough. Ultimately, you have to find others at your level or around your level that feel the same way and think the same way. So for example, you'll see a lot of, certainly for productivity reasons too, but like let's say a YouTuber house, right? This would be people that are all really passionate about YouTube and making videos. I think we've all heard of them. And yet, certainly they get better in their trade. But I think a major underlying bonus that not very many people talk about, or it doesn't get talked about enough, is how you're spending time with people that get you and accept you for all the things that you are and all the things you're looking to get. Now, does that mean no growth? No. But it's closer than, say, the people that you were hanging out with in high school, for example, which, was more of my experience, and I know a lot of other people that felt the same way. But it can often feel like nobody knows you in those situations. And in fact, as we did the world tour this last year, so many people around the world showed up to these events, which was fantastic. I loved it. But I remember about halfway through the year, after about 30 events in maybe 24 different countries, I was spending time in the bathroom with the door locked, on the toilet, just breathing, just hanging out by myself. And I'm a fucking extrovert, like by a major degree. So that was significant. What that was meaning was, well, there's a little bit of a disconnect between who the followers, who these people who follow along with your story and your journey think you are, and who you actually are. They're excited, and they should be, to see you and hang out with you. If you talk to anybody with a decent following or celebrity about that, there's a gratitude that's always there. Yet at the same time, there's a little bit of a disconnect because they're not necessarily understanding who you are. I have this funny, colorful persona, but if you meet me, and let's say I had a really rough morning and I'm not feeling that good, well, your perception of me is now going to be completely altered because who you're expecting is this guy, right? Not everyone's the same degree of excited, bubbly, and silly all the time, or any characteristic really. So it's important. There's a delineation. The ego loves to be fed by the attention, being on stage, getting rewards, being validated. And while those things are good, it's important for us to check in on them periodically and see why we're doing it. Is it for the freedom, truly? Or is there ego involved there? Because if there's too much ego, it can drown out the ultimate purpose and mission. So that it just becomes about feeding the ego, which is fed based on the sheer numbers or volume, yet at the same time won't actually fulfill a whole lot of the goals you're trying to achieve, like more money or more closeness. So identifying what those things are for you early on and sticking to them is going to be really important. Now, the last one. What is the answer to all of this? I've kind of suggested it along the way, but it's community, right? If you were to try and approach this with, let's say, regular medication, maybe that could work. But I've seen a lot of strategies out there that don't necessarily tackle this head on. It's doable, but maybe not the best way. It's like eating sushi with a trident. I'm just doing this because I could only find the trident right now. Anyways, this isn't networking. Community is not networking, but community is the antidote. This isn't fake groups. This is having people around you and checking on you, making you feel like you're on a team sport almost again. Now, when I say real people, it's important we define what real means in this case, because real, to me, is usually, let me explain it this way. There is this theory that I have, based off of my experiences, that you can measure a person's authenticity at a quick glance. Like it won't always be right, but in general, based on how different they are from the environment they're surrounded by. If their opinions and their dress, etc., match the environment that they're surrounded by or the environment they're from, well, then most likely a lot of those things were downloaded. Not necessarily good or bad, but it means maybe a little bit less of an independent free thinker. Now, at the same time, if you can find differences in how they live from their environment, well, then this would suggest that they are more of a free thinker. Now, at the same time as all of that, you have to imagine that it's a lot more comfortable to just do what the rest of your environment does, right? But if you're able to show those little pieces and put them out there and be like, hey, I'm a little bit different here, and be okay with that, well, first of all, huge congratulations, because most of us try and fit ourselves into the box that we were presented and then suffer from massive cognitive dissonance of like, well, I actually want to live this way, but I can't reveal it to anyone or else I'll be judged or banished or whatever. Well, the answer there is usually you find yourself in a different environment. And that ideally shows some of these oddities, a little bit more clearly. So you'd still have those weird features, but now it's, a row of entrepreneurs or a group of farmers or engineers or something like this, right? Just for example. Now, the ultimate reason why this is significant is because, well, a lot of the crutches that I think us as a society lean on the day-to-day, end up being because we don't have someone to share it with. And by it, I mean life, or what we're doing every day. If you don't have that, you're going to try and fill that void with something else. And it very much could be alcohol or other drugs. But at the same time, it could also just be like drowning yourself in work, or, it manifests in so many ways. It's really important that when you look at those, all of these issues that I'm talking about, particularly the loneliness, truly, community does end up being the antidote. Being able to find a group that understands where you're coming from and is okay with where you want to go. In fact, that vulnerability that you're able to share and they're willing to accept can be just the kind of belonging that you need and they're looking for. More so when you're able to be a contributor to that community, whatever that thing is, well then, by golly, you'll be pretty impressed to know that as you find yourself within that environment, someone else is watching and looking for you to help save them and theirs. And it may turn out that somewhere down the line, the community that you joined in order to blossom into the person that you ultimately needed to become is exactly what these other group of people who are looking for some kind of leader in their space, you may have satiated or satisfied that need and therefore brought more value to the world by filling your cup first so that you could fill others. I hope that helps. Get out there and have fun, make friends, build a community, and find yours and help others build theirs. Okay. Bye, everybody.